In this video, we delve into the mystery tapes of the haunting of the Harrisville House, the unsettling secrets of Hinterkaifeck, and the disconcerting mysteries of the Donner Party. Make sure to grab your headphones, especially for the first story. It's an absolute must-see and a true nightmare.
The Haunting of the Harrisville House. It was 1971 when my family and I made the decision to move. The allure of the countryside, coupled with the surprisingly affordable price of a charming farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, seemed like the perfect opportunity for a fresh start. What was meant to be a dream turned into the most haunting chapter of our lives. The house, a sprawling structure with intricate wooden carvings and a broad porch, whispered tales of a time gone by. On our first day, while the sun gleamed over the vast land, casting golden hues on the autumn leaves, the place felt warm and inviting. But as night came, the house took on an eerier ambience, shadows casting long fingers over the walls, and cold breezes slipped through unseen crevices. One evening, while we were settling in, my youngest, Cindy, came rushing into the living room, her eyes wide with terror. She rambled about a man she'd seen in her bedroom mirror, his face twisted in a menacing grimace. We initially dismissed it as an overactive imagination, but soon the rest of the children began to recount similar eerie encounters. Books would hurl themselves from shelves, doors would bang shut, and chilling whispers echoed through the hallways. There was an ominous presence in the house, something malicious, something ancient. My wife, Carolyn, began to bear the brunt of this supernatural onslaught. I'd often find her standing in the middle of rooms, her eyes vacant, murmuring incoherent phrases. One morning, I woke up to find deep scratch marks on her back, as if something had clawed at her during the night. Desperate for answers, I delved into the house's history. I learned of Bathsheba Sherman, a woman rumored to be involved in witchcraft in the 19th century. The tale suggested she'd made a pact with the devil and cursed the land. Over the years, various inhabitants had met tragic fates, from mysterious illnesses to inexplicable suicides. I sought out local priests, paranormal experts, and even mediums, hoping to cleanse the house. Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators, were our last hope. Their findings were unsettling. They spoke of an overwhelming negative energy in the house, a portal to the other side. According to them, this was not just a mere haunting, but a confrontation with a malevolent force. The climax of this torment happened one fateful night. An exorcism was performed, with members of our community joining hands in a circle, chanting prayers, while Lorraine tried to communicate with the entity. The air grew cold, a guttural scream echoed through the house, and the very ground beneath us seemed to shake. My heart pounded so loud I was sure it would burst. Carolyn, possessed, levitated, her face contorted in agony, her voice no longer her own. Hours felt like years, but finally, as dawn approached, a stillness settled. The entity, it seemed, was banished, but the scars remained. My children suffered nightmares. Carolyn became distant, shadows of fear lurking in her eyes. The once comforting countryside now felt oppressive. No amount of sunlight could wash away the darkness that had tainted our lives. We knew we had to leave. We moved to a small town away from the cursed land of Harrisville. Therapy helped, but the shadows of that house still haunt our dreams. Our experiences there became the talk of legends, tales whispered during campfires, a cautionary tale of a beautiful house with a dark soul. The horror I witnessed is something no father or husband should ever experience. But through this ordeal, we learned the power of unity, love, and the resilience of the human spirit. We were tested, broken, but we survived. The Harrisville House will forever be a dark chapter in our lives, a testament to the battles both seen and unseen that we all face.
The Unsettling Secrets of Hinterkaifeck. Growing up in a small Bavarian town, I often heard whispers of the horror that befell a nearby farm, an isolated property named Hinterkaifeck. This is my recounting of the terrifying ordeal that my community endured. It was the spring of 1922 when strange occurrences began. I was a young man, living just a few kilometers away from the Gruber family's farm. Andreas Gruber, the head of the family, was a well-known figure. A sturdy man, he wasn't one to entertain superstitions or old wives' tales. So when he mentioned odd footprints in the snow leading from the forest to his home, with none leading back, it was a cause for concern. One day, as I was visiting their property to help with some chores, I witnessed the unease myself. Creaky footsteps echoed in the attic above, but when Andreas and I went to inspect, we found nothing. The Gruber family was rattled. They spoke of keys going missing and unfamiliar noises in the night. The daughter, Victoria, confided in me about a newspaper she'd found on the property, one that nobody in the family had bought. It's hard to describe the sheer unease I felt, an air of menace that hung heavily over the household. Things took a turn for the tragic mere days later. Returning from a trip to town, I found the farm eerily silent. Cautiously, I made my way to the barn. What I discovered was a vision straight from a nightmare. Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, and her daughter, also named Cecilia, lay lifeless. Their bodies were meticulously stacked atop one another, covered with hay. Panicking, I rushed to the main house. The horror continued. Inside, I found the youngest family member, 2-year-old Joseph, and the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, also murdered. The subsequent police investigation revealed that the family and the maid had been killed with a pickaxe. Disturbingly, the evidence suggested they had been lured to the barn one by one. But what truly sent shivers down my spine was the revelation that the murderer had stayed on the property for several days after the act. Neighbors reported seeing smoke from the chimney, and someone had been feeding the cattle. Theories abounded. From robbers to vengeful neighbors, every possible angle was pursued. Some even whispered about a love triangle between Victoria, her father Andreas, and a potential suitor, claiming that a quarrel had escalated into bloodshed. But no solid evidence emerged, and the case grew colder with each passing year. It's been decades now, and the case remains unsolved. But the legacy of Hinterkaifeck endures. That isolated farm became a symbol of the mysteries that lurk in the shadows, of the unknown threats that might be watching, waiting. The memories still haunt my dreams. Every creak, every whisper of the wind brings me back to that chilling spring of 1922. The house has long been demolished, but the land still bears the weight of the past. No matter how much we try to move forward, some stories, some horrors, are simply too deep to forget.
Lost in the Sierra Nevada. My time with the Donner Party. Looking back, I can't believe the choices that led me to become a part of the infamous Donner Party. Allured by the promises of a better life in California, I joined the group of pioneers in the spring of 1846. Led by George Donner and James F. Reed, we were a motley crew, filled with families, young couples, and single adventurers like me. Our journey started optimistically. The sun was shining, the wagons were filled with supplies, and spirits were high. But as we delved deeper into the vast expanse of America, the journey became arduous. The promised shortcut, the Hastings Cutoff, turned out to be a treacherous route that led us through the thick of the Great Salt Lake Desert. Our wagons got stuck, our cattle wandered, and our supplies dwindled. With each passing day, the tension grew. By the time we reached the Sierra Nevada, winter was already setting in. Snow blanketed the peaks, and the icy winds bit at our faces. Pushing forward seemed impossible, but turning back was no longer an option. We decided to set up camp, hoping to wait out the winter. Our food supplies were limited. We hunted what little game we could find, but as the days turned into weeks, even that became scarce. The biting cold and the gnawing hunger became constant companions. Desperation grew, and hope faded. One morning, as the snowfall was particularly heavy, the realization hit us. We were trapped, and if we didn't do something drastic, none of us would make it out alive. The days became a blur of white and gray. And then, the unthinkable happened. With no food left, and with lives hanging by a thread, a decision was made. A horrific choice to resort to cannibalism. No one spoke of it directly. It was a silent understanding, a grim nod exchanged between hollow eyes. The dead became sustenance for the living. It was a brutal reality I never thought I'd face. The horror of our actions weighed heavily, but the sheer will to survive was overpowering. Weeks later, a rescue team found us. Out of the initial group of pioneers, only 48 of us had survived. The relief of being found was overwhelming, but the trauma of what we'd endured left a permanent mark. Even now, years later, the memories are as sharp as the icy winds of the Sierra Nevada. The faces of those we lost, and the choices we made to survive, will forever haunt my dreams. Every night, I sit by the fire, staring into the flames, hoping to find some redemption, some peace. But the echoes of that winter remain, a chilling reminder of the thin line between civilization and raw survival.